Good morning, students. Today's class, you're going to see the second part of Two Gentlemen of Verona by A.J. Cronin. In this part, you're going to see the narration of the story. In the first part, you would have seen a short intro to the author, characters, plot, justification of the title, and the story in short. In today's class, let's see the narration of the story. The author's trip to Verona. The author's driver, Luigi, was driving the author through the foothills of the Alps. As they drove, two small boys stopped them at the outskirts of Verona and pleaded them to buy wild strawberries. The author's cautious driver, Luigi, conveyed his disapproval, but the little boys attracted them. Nicola and Jacopo, the leading characters of the story. Nicola was the elder, and he was 13 years old. He wore a worn jersey and cut-off khaki pants. Jacopo was 12 years old and wore a shortened army tunic gathered in loose folds about his skinny frame. He was very active, like a squirrel. They had brown skins, tangled hair, and dark, earnest eyes, which attracted everyone. Earnest, serious eyes. Though they are small boys, they seem to be very serious. Nicola was a serious boy, but his smile was steady and engaging. Even though Nicola was a small boy, he seems to be very matured. They were childish enough and in many ways quite artless, which means they are very innocent. Yet in both these boyish faces, there was a seriousness which was far beyond their years. The two boys did different errands to save their sister. The two boys sold wild strawberries on the outskirts of Verona. They shined shoes beside the fountain in the public square. Also, they conducted the tourists round the town. They acted as a tourist guide. Also, they booked seats for opera and bought a pack of American cigarettes to the tourist. They hawked newspapers till late in the night. The author wondered what the boys did with the money they earned, because they ate only the black bread and figs and slept on the pavement and spent nothing on clothes, as they wear only the torn clothes. The author, out of curiosity, asked the boys whether they saved money to emigrate to America. The boys told them that they wished to go, but right then they had other plans. The narrator asked the boys whether they needed any help, as they were going to leave on Monday. Nicola shook his head, but Jacopo requested him to drive them to Spoleto. So, Nicola was very much interested, whereas Jacopo requested him to drive him to Spoleto, 30 kilometers from Verona. The author was ready to drive, but Nicola stared at his younger brother, with vexation. So Jacopo was ready to get into the car, whereas Nicola stared at his younger brother not to get any help or sympathy from anybody. The following afternoon, J.K. Cronin drove the two boys in his car to the tiny village set up on the hillside. Finally, the author allowed the boys to take along with him to Spoleto. The author thought that it would be some humble dwellings, but they drew up at large red-roofed villa, surrounded by a high stone wall. So the two boys, along with the author, they went to Spoleto, where they drew up at a large red-roofed villa, surrounded by a high stone wall. Within no time, the boys leaped from the car and told the author that they would return within an hour. They didn't even say anything, where they are going, whom they are going to meet. And they requested the author to have a drink in the cafe meantime. The narrator very secretly followed the boys and entered a grilled side entrance. A pleasant woman was standing there. The author entered the grilled side entrance and rang the bell. There he came across a pleasant-looking woman with steel-rimmed spectacles appeared. He asked her about the boys. She took him through a coal tiled vestibule veranda into the hospital. At the door of a little cubicle, the nurse passed and showed the boys. The boys were chatting with a girl of 20 who propped up on pillows wearing a lace jacket. It's none other than the two boys' loving sister, Lucia, who was suffering from tuberculosis. She resembled her brothers. Later, the narrator begged the nurse to tell about them. So the narrator asked the nurse to tell about the two boys. She told them that they were alone in the world. They lost their father in the war. Bomb destroyed their home and were thrown into the streets. They had horribly suffered from near starvation. When they came back from war, they found their sister Lucia was suffering from tuberculosis of the spine. They never gave up. Even though they were small boys, they never gave up. Even in the tight corner, they took her to the hospital and made the payment. In the 12 months she has been their patient, and she has made good progress. Every week the boys made their payment. You know how? By doing different errands, like selling strawberries, selling newspapers, shining the shoes, and doing all sorts of odd jobs. The narrator waited outside until the boys rejoined him and then drove them back to the city. The boys felt that they had kept a secret. They didn't know that the author knew about them right from the nurse. He was deeply touched by their devotion. So, war had not broken their spirit. Their selfless action brought a new nobility to human life, gave promise of a greater hope for human society. Is that not so? There is no doubt. The title is very beautifully justified by A.J. Cronin, The Two Gentlemen of Verona. Nothing is more limiting than a closed circle of acquaintanceship where every avenue of conversation has been explored and social exchanges are fixed in a known routine. A.J. Cronin. Thank you, children. Thank you.